What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Pipeline Profits. This is the podcast where we go deep on all things marketing and sales. My name is Emma Pace, and I'm here with my co-host and business partner, Ryan Wykes. And to say that we are borderline obsessed with sales and marketing, I think would be an understatement. And today we manifested this guest. We talked about this guest for a long time, even before we started this podcast. So this one's real special to us. I'm going to give Ryan the honor of introducing who we have today.
Yeah, as Emma said, super special guest for you guys. Someone who was a huge influence on my career, fueled my obsession with sales and conversions of online leads, taught me a lot about what I know through his books. He's a 3-time author. He is voted by the Marketing Association of America as one of the top 4 marketers under the age of 40. He wrote and is the author of The Conversion Code, both editions, edition 1 and edition 2. He is the co-author of Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents, which is another book that is like a Bible of mine. He also co-authored Peoplework. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Chris Smith, also co-founder of Curaytor, which for you realtors out there who do generate online leads, you definitely know Curaytor. Chris Smith, we have in the building today. As Emma said,
Awesome.
You were, when we talked, before we even talked about this podcast, you were someone that we both wanted to get to know and wanted to know more about. Obviously, read your books, read about you, listened to you on other podcasts, part of the Conversion Club. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I got the black t-shirt.
Oh, you fit right in.
You got the memo. You got the memo.
I did. I got
right
the memo.
in.
Yes. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the nice intro.
You're very welcome. It's our honor to have you, and we can't wait to dive a little bit more into your story. And I hope by the end of this podcast, I know how many people are going to be impacted, because you've had a big impact on both our careers and our teams, because it was a mandatory reading. Exactly What to Say is mandatory reading for a lot of agents. So Thank you. But you know what? I wanted to ask you. I was speaking with our good friend Amy Youngren, and she said that she thought that you had started originally in mortgages. Is that right?
Well, actually, before I got into mortgages, I was selling vacations. I was selling it, but it's actually fairly interesting. This guy named Lou Pearlman was the inventor of the boy band era. He would do these vacations in Orlando where if you wanted to be a model, actor, singer, or comedian, you could come to Orlando for 3 days and 2 nights and you could audition for an actual talent agent. And this is before there was like American Idol. There was really, you either had to move to Hollywood, move to New York, move to Nashville, or do this. This was kind of like the only other option for people, regular people, to try to become famous. So that was my first sales job. But yes, shortly after that, I got into working for Quicken Loans, which was the largest online lender in the country. They were very cutting edge. This is before a lot of people were doing like an online mortgage. This is still when people felt more comfortable going to the bank, going to the credit union, sitting down face to face with someone. And so I learned a lot about, mortgages and sales, but I learned a lot about technology and systems and CRMs and lead generation, lead routing, kind of the bones underneath, which is now Rocket Mortgage. But Dan Gilbert, who's the founder of Quicken, and Lou Pearlman, who is the, Britney, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. He created all of those bands. They were both billionaires. And I just learned so much from them. And a lot of the teachings that I've given over the years are the Zen learnings that I got from them.
How did you get linked up with Lou Pearlman of all people?
It's Orlando is the birthplace of the boy bands. And I was living in Lakeland, which is just down the street. And they were hiring inside sales reps. You guys know, like, inside sales is tough. And if you've got a pulse, they'll hire you. Because they just never know if you're going to be good or not. It's more trial by fire. It's kind of like, hey, here's the headset. Here's the script, see what you can do. And so, I was in between jobs and I found this sales job for this guru and ended up getting the job very quickly and was good at it right away. Had a little bit of a natural ability to do it, but I've always been a student of the game like you guys. You're rattling off the books that I've written, and I've read a lot of books too. And so it was like the black hat, dirty boiler room that you see in the movies.
I love it.
This expert sales coach, these amazing lessons that he would teach every morning, very cutthroat, very much like you hit your numbers or you're fired. And I had a lot of fun doing that. And I did it for several months. I was making a ton of money. I ended up getting a different opportunity, so I didn't stay there forever. But yeah, I just went on like monster.com. I went on the classifieds and looked for jobs. That was how I got hooked up with them.
So when you got that job with Lou Pearlman selling auditions or audition trips, audition vacations, when was the point? Like, was it day one when you walked into that room or was there something that happened or a phone call or a client interaction that really like fueled what came to be your obsession with sales and converting online leads? Like, is there one particular moment that you can like attribute it to? A person, a trainer, a mentor?
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, there was definitely a trainer. His name was David Williamson, and he actually went to jail in the 80s for telemarketing fraud. So like he was like the Wolf of Wall Street. And at this point, he was later in his career. The lesson that I remember, there's two things that stand out as you asked that. One is a very simple drawing that he did that I'm always doing for people. And it's basically science. It's like, if you can get people more excited than the cost during the time you have their attention, you can make a sale. And so it's very simple. Just get them more excited than the price and then ask for the business. The other thing that really, it kind of scared me into wanting to be great at sales was in my first week, they fired half the staff. And they basically came in and said, hey, we're going to read off a list of names. And if you hear your name, you still have a job. And if you don't, you need to leave the building in the next 5 minutes and you're fired.
Wow.
And it was this crazy scene. It was like real cutthroat. And he came back in and he's like, hey, some of those people that we just fired were pregnant. Some of them had a sick kid. Some of them have a disease. And we don't care because they didn't hit their numbers. So get back on the phones. And so that was kind of like, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything because it's kind of like that show Scared Straight where they take the kids to jail.
Oh, yes, for
sure. Like scare them into being good. That's what that was for me. So, but what I learned in that moment, because he drew a little square and he said, the only thing that fits in the square on our spreadsheets is your numbers. Excuses don't fit.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. And so like I always played sports growing up, and sports is very much about your numbers. How many points do you average? What's your batting average? What's your quarterback rating? Right. And so being from a small place, I grew up in the trailer parks and orange groves and cow pastures. The score is the only thing that matters in sales. As you guys know, you guys are sales trainers. You work with some amazing teams. You don't care if somebody's black or white. You don't care if somebody's fat or skinny. You don't care if somebody's gay or straight. You care about their numbers and if they're producing. And that is really the ultimate metric. So I think for me, that was always exciting, was that like, if you hit your numbers, you've got a great career and you can make great money, but you do have to hit your numbers. You have to understand that this is a numbers game. This is dials, conversations, appointment set, appointment show. Like it is very numbers driven, which is not always my favorite part of it. I like the art and the science of sales, but I think for anybody listening, that's one of the mantras that you have to have is that excuses don't fit.
I love
it. I got a question about, I don't want to keep going back to Lou Pearlman, but I got a question about this, this audition vacation job.
Mm-hmm.
So we know sales are sales, the numbers matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the clientele base or the actual prospect or lead itself, I imagine is drastically different between someone who's auditioning to potentially be the next Backstreet Boy versus someone who's looking for a hat, right?
Sure.
So are there any crazy stories that you have of people who have come into Orlando like that you just remember from like that sales experience?
Yeah. Well, the thing that was so interesting was that we were not the talent reps. Like we were supposed to figure out like, should this person come or not, because they have excitement for the opportunity. But I'm not Lou Pearlman. I'm not going to say if you're good at singing. I'm not going to say if you're a beautiful model. But this one thing I remember, I was interviewing a blind guy and he sang Amazing Grace to me over the phone. And, there's obviously the line in that song, I once was blind and now I see. So the tricky thing was that we had to get these people excited, but they would always say, like, where do I send my pictures? Or do you want me to sing for you? And that it was very clear. That's not our job. That's what we do at the event. The event is for that. Our job is to screen to make sure you want to be at the event. There's 67,000 people that want to be at the event, and there's 1,200 spots at the event. So my job is to figure out if you should be there, and your job is to convince me that you should. So it was actually the best reverse psychology of all time. They are selling you the whole time on why they should be, allowed to have this opportunity. And it even got to the point where it'd be like, okay, well, give me a second. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to talk to my boss. I'm going to let them know that you seem like a good fit, but you're going to have to talk to them too. And you're going to have to convince them too. And so then your boss would get on and they'd chat with them. Okay, well, let me get back with Chris and we'll give you our decision. And then I would come back on and say, all right, good news. You're coming to Orlando. And they would be so freaking excited. They would be screaming, oh my God, thank you. Da, da, da. And as they were, basically saying that, would be like, so how'd you want to handle the first payment? Do you want to use credit card, debit card? So it was, in all honesty, it was a very easy sale. What it taught me was that if you can get people excited enough, they'll throw their credit card through the screen at you. They'll start reading the digits, and some of them didn't have debit cards. They'd have to go buy a prepaid credit card to even do it. We used to take Western Union, so we would have to go on the map and find out where the closest Western Union was, and it was $1,200. It wasn't cheap, and it was $199 6 times if they needed to make the payments. But yeah, I've never sold anything that was easier to sell than that, and I had tried to become an actor. And I think this is where I really bonded with them, because I did the old fashioned move to Los Angeles, get your headshots done, mail out your resume to all the talent agents, try to get auditions, go to acting class. And to be able to really go to 3 days, 2 nights in Orlando and get to act for a talent agent, it really was a great deal. But not a lot of people ended up becoming discovered at these events, because not a lot of people are meant to be famous. Think about how many people are in line at these American Idol auditions versus how many of them are in that top 12 and actually have the chops. So that would be the other thing I learned, was that talent matters.
When you were saying that, I'm like, how are these people not hitting their numbers? What? You have the best sales process of all time.
I know. It was crazy. And they would we called them spiffs. I don't even know what spiffs, sales performance something, but we would get $100 bills. If you make 2 sales today, we'll give you an extra $100 bill. And they used to pass around people's paychecks. They would make copies of people's paychecks when they got a big paycheck, and they would circulate it so you could see how big your check could be. But it was easy. But the fundamentals are the same in every other job. If you are doing a loan, the person has to be more excited than the closing costs. They have to be more excited about the new payment than the old payment. If you're selling real estate, the people have to be more excited about the next house than the house they're in, or they have to be more excited about buying a home than they are maybe renting their current home. And I've sold software with Curaytor, it's the same thing. And I can tell you that the technique of, kind of go for no and have them sell you is very powerful. At Curaytor, one of the things that we always say to every person we talk to is, we are not right for everyone. You got to convince me that if we do this and we help you generate leads, you got to convince me that you're going to follow up. You're going to follow up quickly. If we write a marketing plan for you every single week, you got to convince me that you're going to hit publish and distribute it. There's a way, if you do sales right, to get the person to sell themselves. And then that's really where you want to be. But it takes a lot of confidence to do it that way.
Do you think there's this is a question off what you were saying, but do you think does it matter what you're selling? Can you create an environment where the other person has to actually sell themselves to you?
Yeah, I would say it's trickier. A lot of it depends on the lead source. So with Lou Pearlman, I don't know if you guys remember, there used to be people at the mall with a clipboard that would be like, hey, your child is really cute. They should be a model.
Yes.
Or there would be radio ads that would say, hey, do you want to be an actor? Do you want to be a model? Do you want to be a singer? If so, call this number.
Yeah.
Because there really weren't even internet leads at that time. This is back in like 06, 07, right before the explosion. So I would say, depending on the quality of the lead source, yes, you can have anybody. Now, if you're doing like Facebook ads where you're forcing people to register to look at a listing and all they really want to do is look at the pictures, and you're putting that brick wall in front of them, and they're not really a real lead. You know, they're basically somebody that has to fill out the form to get to the next step. They don't really want to fill out the form. When that's your lead quality, then it's a lot harder to be the alpha.
Right.
But when you have a brand, you know, when you're Curaytor, when you're Zillow, when you have a brand that's established that people know, and when you collect a lot of information on the form when you get a lead, and when you don't force people to register, that's the thing that's so funny is the real estate industry, you know, I would say probably 95% of the leads are the forced registration leads. And in other industries, it's not that way. In other industries, people actually want to fill out the form. Like with Curaytor, they want us to call them back. They can't wait to talk to us. They're excited about learning about what we sell. And that's probably the same with a lot of real estate vendors. Like if you want to learn about Follow Up Boss and you're a realtor and you fill out the form and then the Follow Up Boss guy calls you, you're kind of pumped, you know? So I think to answer your question, the quality of the lead source dictates your ability to kind of get them to sell you.
Do you think there's a mistake that realtors are making in terms of what they're doing to generate their leads? Like, is there something you think they should be doing differently? Or do you think if they changed it, would they be shrinking their lead pool too much?
Yeah, there's the drawing in the book is like quantity and quality. And you have to kind of choose your poison. If you want quantity, the quality is going to go way down. If you want quantity, the quality is way down. Like you can't have both. And so like there's ways, like if you want to get leads through your brand and kind of like more of a brand play, let's say you do a contest, a giveaway, partner with some local, you know, you're the official realtor of the Tampa Bay Lightning and you get to do these parties with the Lightning. And all these people show up and they're pumped that you put the party on and they fill out a clipboard to give you their information. There's ways to get higher quality leads. I think that what happened in the real estate industry is with the rise of teams, you got a lot of mouths to feed. So you kind of need a lot of leads. And so it's tricky because something can work and not work at the same time. As you guys know, even if you work forced reg leads, you can get a lot of business from that. So it does work. But I think we all would agree it has like a 99% fail rate. So it really just depends on what kind of reality do you want to live in? You know, do you want and need a lot of leads because you have a big team and you need to give them leads? Well, then you're going to have to make sure they understand the conversion rate at 1% is really good. And that then becomes about your mindset as you dig through the other 99, right?
Right.
Versus you don't have to force anyone to register. This is something I don't think people really want to admit. It's kind of like a bad word, but Zillow has the highest quality leads in the industry. Yeah. That's why with things like Zillow Flex, they take 30% of the commission, 35% of the commission. How in the world is a realtor willing to do that? Well, because Zillow produces high quality leads. Well, how does Zillow do that? Well, Zillow doesn't have forced reg. It's that simple. Zillow has a brand. Zillow has traffic, right? They have intent, right? So if I'm a realtor and I'm driving people to a listing page as an ad, I can choose to make them register or not. Right. So I can get 100 people to register and get one good lead, or I can make nobody register and then one guy registers and I get one good lead. You can kind of do it either way, but it's hard to build a brand. You know, building a brand is just as hard as digging through shitty leads. You know, like there's no easy way to do it. Marketing is hard. So I don't really consider forced reg marketing. That's advertising. You know, that's an ad. And so when your leads come in through ads, they're going to be lower quality. When they come in through marketing, they're going to be higher quality. If somebody reads an 8-page white paper that you wrote about the impact of COVID on the housing market long term, and then after they read that, they reach out to you because they think you're an expert, you know, that's going to be a really high quality lead. So there's ways to do it both, but I see it happening all the time. I think honestly, if I were advising a team like the North Group, if I were advising the clients that we work with at Curaytor, you really want both. You know, you want to have leads that come in through our brand leads that come in through our marketing and leads that come in through our advertising, and then just understanding that the quantity and quality will be different based on the source.
So I've got a question for you on that. So I agree with you in that there needs to be different expectation setting by team leaders, because most people rely on repeat and referral. And if that's how your business has been built, and then you go in with the same expectations that I'm going to spend money on marketing or advertising and the lead quality is going to be the same,
Yeah.
we're setting ourselves up for failure, because the intent is much different, right? So if I'm a new team leader, how imperative do you think it is that I have base foundation or fundamental in regards to what happens with marketing? Maybe I'm not an expert, but how important do you think it is that I actually have some type of level of understanding? Because I think there's a disparity in real estate where people are like, oh, I don't know anything about this. Hire some third-party company. They're all garbage, right? What do you think I should do as like a first next step to make sure that I don't think every company is garbage, because I have actually done a little bit of research to say who actually is going to stand out, like Curaytor, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is back to saying Zillow is the best lead source. The second best lead source, or kind of 1 and 1A, would be Google, because with Google ads, people are showing that same high level of intent. Homes for sale right now in 32828 under 500K. Somebody putting those parameters into Google and then coming in through your form is much higher quality than somebody that was scrolling through Instagram and happens to see one of your ads. The thing that I think a lot about, Emma, with marketing, and where I think the biggest opportunity for that team lead to kind of do it right, is around their listings. It is a fiduciary responsibility of a realtor to market the properties that they represent. And it is so sad what most real estate agents do when they market your home. It is half-assed at best, because we have a thing at Curaytor called listing promotions as a service. And we've got the listing email marketing, Facebook ads, retargeting, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Like, we actually do the marketing for a listing that most people don't. And it's most people, they will say, we put your listing on Facebook, but they don't do it the right way, and they don't boost it and put a budget behind it, and they don't sort of do it the way an agency would do it. And what we find time and time again is that when people are thinking of listing their home, they want, like, when they see Brad McCullum's a good example, this guy up in Calgary, when people see the videos that he does, when people see the campaigns that you run, something goes off in their mind and they want that for their home. They want a video like the one he does. They want to see their listing all over the internet. They want, God forbid, statistics about the success of the campaigns that you ran. Like, we have a thing that's like a seller success sheet. And it's basically grabbing all the data from all of the places that we did the marketing and putting it into a beautiful report, showing versus telling how great it would be. So if I was that team leader, I would obsess about how can I turn my listings specifically into as many new leads as possible for my team. And then the byproduct is, when you're advertising a listing, people always think of buyers. But there's always this idea that, like, by the way, if you want your home to be featured to our 80,000 person email list, if you'd like your home to be featured on TikTok and YouTube, not just on the MLS and on Zillow, we can help you too. And that comes down to consistency. There's a team in Vegas, the Joe Taylor Group. They have been doing Facebook ads.
Joe well.
Yeah. I mean, they do it so often. And what was so funny about Joe is he wasn't even using his listings. He almost manifested them becoming his listings. He would get permission from other agents who had listings who didn't want to do any marketing or advertising. And he's had to play with it over the years. Like, it used to just be like forced reg, and then it was like comment below, and then it was mini chat, and then it was text this to this to get the pictures and the location and the price. He's had to kind of continue to tweak it to make sure that he got high quality opportunities. Messenger. Hey, send us a message on Messenger. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But I would just say, obsessing about the marketing of your listings. And then if you don't have any listings, finding those top listing agents that are absolutely not going to do any clever marketing or advertising. They're doing the basics, But if you offered to do it, they would be okay with it. Hey, I want to help you find a buyer. To do that, I want to use your listing. You can get written permission. A lot of times, if you're in the same office as someone, it's like a co-broke where it's like you can promote the listings from the other agents in your office, things like that.
So that being said, would you, because taking Joe as an example, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, he started kind of with the core thing and then he messed around with it a little bit. He did the ManyChat thing, right? So if I'm a new agent and I'm thinking like, okay, I kind of want to go and do this thing like this. What Chris just said is a great idea. I don't have any listings. I have a little bit of money. I'm willing to put some time and energy to learn this. One of the things that I hear on my side is like, well, there's so many things and things are always constantly changing, which is a great like tactic for marketing companies. But if we look at the percentage split, would you say like 80% of the stuff is just like the core fundamentals of marketing? And then whether you're using the ManyChat, tactic of like commenting or forced reg or whatever, that's like the salt and pepper. That's like the 20%. Because I think those are the things that deter people from getting started because they feel like there's always this constant evolving or changing way to do it, right? So if I'm a new agent, what do I do?
Yeah, I think the core principle or philosophy is called creating an information gap, which is I've got some information and it's enough to be intriguing, but I'm not going to give you the rest of the information until you do X. And what you're saying is that X could be send us a message, leave a comment, text this number, right? Click here and fill out the form. So I would say, the key principle is what are people willing to give their information for? And what we found is that if you give people like, hey, here's the amenities, here's some beautiful photos, like give them 15 pictures of the house, give them the description from the MLS, give them the list of amenities, give them the beds and bath and square footage, right? Like give them enough so that they kind of go, that might be the right house for me. But some of the real like sweet spots that you can hold back would be like the exact location of the property. Another one would be the list price. Like if you want the price and the location, you're going to have to cross that bridge across the information gap. And I would say price and location are the best too. You can also hold back pictures. Hey, if you want to see 30 more pictures and a video and know where this property's at and get the price, then do this. So there's like a payoff for the people that do it. By the way, that bothers a lot of people. A lot of times in the comments, like, why can't you just give us the price? Why can't you just give us, because I got mouths to feed, because I need leads to build my business. Because if you do give all of that away, a lot of times people are going to not, they're going to not qualify. So think about this. I'm looking for a home in Avalon Park where I live. I want it to be $500,000 and I see a listing on Facebook that's in Windermere. Well, if it's in Windermere across town, I would never engage with that ever. But if I see the home and the home looks good and it looks really interesting, I hope it's in Avalon Park. And Joe would like to capture me as a lead because I am a high quality lead that's ready to convert just in a different part of town. So it's tricky. It's a balance. It's like you're on a tightrope trying to figure out what do I give? What do I keep? Yeah, I would say that 80% of the marketing or advertising that you're doing are these fundamentals. And then 20% is the channel, the call to action, the kind of sweet new technology of the day, things like ManyChat, which a lot of people are listening and they're Googling it, like ManyChat. What is ManyChat? I use a text message tool called Community. The tools really matter because at that 80% rate, you're still not in the end zone. You still got 20 yards to go. And I bet if we had Joe on or some of these other agents that are really great at Facebook ads, they would say that a huge part of the secret sauce to converting leads, it's not the generation code, it's the conversion code. So the secret to converting leads, a lot of time the devil is in those little details of the tool you choose, the call to action you go with.
I love it.
So you just made that so simple, even though it's not simple, which I love. But it is like that tweaking, that constant tweaking of what is the give and take? What do people want in order to give you what you want, which is their information. And I think like it is that simple, and it's just really understanding the psychology of your target market to being able to figure out, hey, here's what they want bad enough to give me what I want.
Yep.
Right. And it's changing all the time, which is what makes conversion and sales actually hard is, and that's why I love your second edition of the conversion code, because, and I was saying this to somebody I coached the other day, everybody, it's a must read.
It's thicker than the first version.
The consumer is constantly changing. What they want is constantly changing, and the consumer is getting smarter and smarter and smarter, right? Like, what we're really focused on is what worked in sales or to sell people 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, doesn't work today. And I know you saw that with some of the tactics we talked about when we came on the Conversion Club. And I think it's the same thing with marketing. And the best marketers are the ones that are able to adapt and change and figure out the psychology of their customer very quickly.
Yeah. And they have a diversity of their lead sources. So they're getting leads from their lawn signs. They're getting leads from their past clients. They're getting leads from Zillow. They're getting leads from social. They're getting leads from search. Ben Kinney's a real sharp guy in the industry. He runs a company called Place, $1 billion valuation. And he says to just think about it as a pie. You want many, many slices. You don't want your pie to be one thing, because if you're over invested in one thing, you're kind of screwed. And that's where obviously tracking and even little things like asking people, you'd be surprised that a lot of times you'll get a lead and you'll get a lead that calls you, or it'll be like more of like they send you an email. But the reason they did was because they were seeing your ads on Facebook for 6 straight months. Or you'll actually have somebody that comes in through your website, but they got to your website from a Facebook ad. So I think the most powerful question you can ask every lead you talk to is, how did you find out about us? Let them tell you, because it's not always what you think. Like, our phone rang. Does that mean that our phone number was the lead source? Or what were we doing to stay in front of that person long term to where they finally called our number? We have agents that do that. And one thing I've learned is that when you ask that question to every single lead, you actually end up uncovering the ROI is really nice of a lot of this stuff. But when you forget to ask, if you just see the lead source Facebook, but meanwhile, Facebook's not usually the lead source. Maybe if you do like the lead gen form ads, but a lot of times the source of the click is Facebook, but the source of the lead is your website. And meanwhile, they don't even remember seeing a Facebook ad. So I actually think that like kind of that manual tracking, is also really powerful too, because the CRMs can kind of track it and you can see how many leads from each source and stuff like that. But I think getting that verbal is really powerful. Where'd you learn about us? How'd you find out about us? I get that question a lot on e-commerce websites where you buy something that says, was it Google? Was it a billboard? Was it a friend? Those things are really powerful because then you know where to invest more time and money.
So you've given us so much tactical stuff already. Like, this has been awesome. And, I think it goes even deeper than what's in the book. I want to backtrack just 1 second for your story. So you're obviously super knowledgeable in the real estate space, and that's a big part of what you're known for now. How did you end up from Rocket Mortgages and then falling into the real estate space and becoming, one of the top minds in lead conversion and sales for real estate? Like, where did that transition happen? Did you meet a particular person? Like, what happened there for you to become the Chris Smith you are today?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just luck and timing and preparation. I was in Cleveland, Ohio, working for Quicken Loans. They owned the Cavs. Like, it was a great gig, but it was very time intensive. I mean, it's 12 to 13 hours a day, every day, half a day, every weekend, in the office at 7, out of the office at 8 p.m. It was a grind. And the reason I got the job at Quicken was because my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. And so I wanted to make more money. I was working in the restaurant business at the time. So I went to Quicken and I got that experience. And then after we had our child, it was just kind of a lot of people, they move back home to get help with the kid, get closer to grandma and grandpa, find a place to raise them the right way. And so when I moved back to Florida, I put my resume online. I was looking for a job. And because I had experience with sales, with internet leads, with mortgage, which is obviously a peripheral of the real estate space, I ended up getting contacted by a recruiter, and they were looking for a sales rep for Top Producer, which is a CRM, used to be the number one CRM by far. They were the gold standard for a long time. And they were looking for a sales rep for the state of Florida who would go to offices, real estate offices, and do presentations. And they already had a lot of customers. So it was kind of like 50% presenting and selling and 50% training. And so I started going to these offices, and what I learned was that if the people that already had it weren't happy with it, none of the new people would buy it. And then if the people that already had, because the Top Producer at that time was like $39 a month.
Yep.
If the people that had the $39 a month product weren't happy, there's no way they were going to add on a $99 upsell, which was called Market Snapshot. And so I learned about real estate agents and the real estate industry in the trenches. I was at 2 offices a day every single day. And then because Florida is so big, half the month I was on the road and I wasn't home. And so what I started doing is I was practicing what I was preaching. I would take every business card I would get throughout the day. I would type them into Top Producer, and I would email out little helpful tips and tricks. So I would basically say, hey, if you have Top Producer, here's a couple ways to do it better. If you have Market Snapshot, here's a couple ways you can use to do marketing. And as I did that, I broke the rules of my company and I started a Facebook page. We weren't allowed to have like social media under the company brand, because what people might not know is that Top Producer was owned by Realtor.com. So Realtor.com has a deal with NAR. So there's a lot of like red tape there that you can't, it's like a publicly traded company. You're not supposed to be making statements on behalf of the company. Like you're just some sales rep in Florida. So I started a Facebook page and I called it Tech Savvy Agent. And instead of putting my picture, I put like a little question mark, and I made it like this kind of like mysterious, like who is Tech Savvy Agent? And this was at the very beginning days of Facebook. I was very early, and the page started exploding in growth. And all I did on the page was the same thing I did during my day job. I would provide helpful tips and tricks for realtors, and the page started blowing up. And so I started doing a blog, and I started doing YouTube videos. I finally kind of came out of the closet and showed my face. And the company actually came to me and they said, none of this is yours. This is ours. You need to sign this. And you need to understand that you don't own Tech Savvy Agent. We do. Because you created it on our dime. And I was kind of torn because in one way they were right, because all the realtors I was meeting during the day, it was a part of my day job, and getting their cards and building the database was because of that. But the growth of the website and the YouTube channel had nothing to do with Realtor.com or Top Producer. It was just kind of viral exponential growth because of the internet. And I just didn't understand, because 99% of the content on Tech Savvy Agent was a video of me.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I think I'm the brand. Like, I don't think that you guys really even should want to own the brand. You should want to own the person. Like I felt like they should have been pouring into me and helping me. And they did eventually. So we did like Tech Savvy Agent seminars, and it eventually became something that was kind of embraced by the company because I was number one in sales and they didn't want to lose their top sales rep. But long story short, Inman News hired me away. Inman News, which is the premier news company, they basically valued content. They didn't care about CRM sales, or they didn't care about, they just understood that like, this guy's good at getting clicks. This guy's good at getting attention. He's good with social media. Those are all things that can help Inman News. And I went to Inman News. So it was Rocket Mortgage. Well, it was Lou Pearlman, which led me to Rocket Mortgage, which led me to Top Producer. top producer's parent company was very influential. And then it was just, I just have always loved to work. So when I would get off at 5 o'clock and I was in Miami and I had nothing else to do, I would blog and write and do videos and create content on the internet. And I definitely had the benefit of being an early adopter. I would say nowadays it's way harder to start a podcast. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody has a Facebook page. You could sign up for a Facebook page now and never get any fans. Never get any likes. Back in the early days, the viral growth was really there. So yeah, that's the journey. And then after I left Inman, it was just to start my own company, which was Curaytor. So kind of the ping ponged around. But every time I would give a speech for Inman, and every time I would do a seminar or be at one of their conferences, people would line up and try to hire me and just say, hey, I love all this cool stuff you're teaching, but I don't have time. Can I pay you to do it for me? I believe in everything you're saying. I think social media is the future. I think that having a beautiful website matters. I think email marketing is important. I think Google's important. Like I believe in what you're saying, but I don't have anybody on my team that knows what to do, but I've got a budget. Can I hire you? And I would just say, no, sorry. And eventually after like 2 or 3 years of that, it was like, screw this. I'm going to say yes.
I'm turning away too much money.
Yeah. Eventually it became unlucrative to say no. I learned a lot at all those companies, had great trainers, great bosses, great mentors, learned the industry inside and out through that experience. And I think that's one thing that, if you're the agent in Avalon Park, you've got to live it and breathe it. You've got to know where the soccer league is. You've got to know everything about the local restaurants. You've got to know everything about the vendors, the painters, the roofers. You've got to, you really have to, it has to exude out of you. You have to know all of it. And it takes time to become an expert like that. So through all these experiences and being in the offices and being at the seminars and doing all the stuff that I've done, I really I put the 10,000 hours in to become an expert on the industry. I've always very naturally loved sales, loved marketing, systems, tools, technology, tech savvy agent, right? If you don't understand real estate agents as a vendor, it's really hard to have success. If you don't know what a FSBO is, if you don't know what a farm is, there's all these weird acronyms. If you think that MLS is a soccer league, you're not going to do very good on the phone with a realtor.
That's funny. Bringing it, when you were talking about your kind of like the hierarchy from where you started, from like Lou Pearlman to getting all the way to Curaytor, it was so interesting because you had mentioned at the beginning, before you had even worked for Lou Pearlman, you had made the trip to go to Hollywood and you had you were pounding the pavement to just try and get those jobs. And when you were talking about your progression, I was like, oh man, it's so interesting to see how you came from that. Because it was like you went there, you sold yourself, you pounded the pavement, you did all of this stuff before you even became like a true salesperson. But you also always had I want to be an actor and I'm comfortable being in front of people. And so it's so interesting to see that you took that route and then now it's come kind of full circle where you still got to be the face of the company, the face of tech savvy agent and do all of that kind of stuff. But it's like, that journey seems like such a harmonious way for you to start and to get to where you're at now, but being comfortable being an agent.
Yeah, it's crazy because I wanted to be famous. I thought I was going to be famous. I thought I was going to be a household name and everybody was going to know me. And I used to watch all the late night shows and I'd watch all the actors get interviewed. And I would just say like, I'm as entertaining as they are. I can do this too. And in my own little way, I did carve out a little bit of a niche and I did find a little bit of fame within the industry. And now having books and having a big following and getting to do stuff like this, I'm not Brad Pitt, but
you're the Brad Pitt of real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I think a few people say that about Jimmy though.
Yeah, well, Jimmy's got the muscles.
Listen, we're going to have you back on because I feel like we're just getting started here.
Scratching the surface.
Out of time. Sure. Yeah, so this has been so awesome. But before we wrap up today, I just want to ask, outside of your 3 books, we always ask this question, outside of your 3 books, which everybody should go read, well, both copies of both versions of the Conversion Code, definitely the exactly what to say for realtors and Peoplework. But is there one book that you think had a huge effect on your career that you would recommend any salesperson, or one course that they should take to really, make a difference in your career that I would say is really relevant right now?
Yeah, well, a couple come to mind. I don't want to give it this big grand, here's the one magic book for you. But depending on where people are at in their journey, one of the best books to read is The Alchemist. The Alchemist is this book about like where your life's at and where you want it to go and the decisions that you make. It's a world famous book. And I read that when I was in Hollywood, and it really meant a lot to me. Another one, and this is controversial, I'm not a fan of Trump. I don't endorse Donald Trump, but The Art of the Deal, when I read that, I learned a lot. Like if you
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It's very tactical and practical. It talks about how he kind of built his empire, and what he would do is he would go into these buildings that were like 5 stories high, and he would offer to buy the air above their building. And he would go in and he would be like, hey, I want to buy the air rights to your building. So if there's ever anything built from the 6th story and up, I want to own that, and I'll give you money if that ever happens. And people thought he was a little bit crazy, but he kind of saw that these buildings are going to be 80 stories one day. And eventually the air above the buildings became worth more than the 5-story building that was still there. So there were some interesting things that I learned from that. One other one that's really good is called The Method, probably one that no one's ever heard of. And it's a soap company. Have you ever heard of Method Soap? Yep. They have like funky shaped bottles, and they don't use any chemicals and stuff like that. They're a very eco-friendly brand. But if you think it's hard to be a realtor, think how hard it is to become a soap company. It's such a boring product. There's all these incumbents. There's Dial, Dove, like all these other soap companies that people have to choose from. And that one's really practical. It's the 7 things they did to disrupt a huge industry. And the last one is called Rework. Rework is a book by the guys that created Basecamp. They're called 37 Signals. Jason Fried and DHH are the co-authors. And I think that's a good one for people that, they're kind of stuck in their old ways, and they want to run their business in a different way. They know that they're not modern enough. They know that they're kind of old school and stodgy, and they kind of want to rework the way that they run their business. That's a good one too.
Okay, so we got Rework, The Art of the Deal, The Method, and then The Alchemist.
Yeah.
Are you a hip hop fan?
Big time, yeah.
Okay, so are you a Russ fan?
Rick Ross?
No, Russ, like the guy.
Oh,
his name
yeah, I
is
like Russ. I like Russ.
So his entire new album is based off of The Alchemist.
Oh, cool.
So he is like massively obsessed with that book. And the new album, he just released it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't listened to it and you love the book, I would definitely recommend going back to listen to it. The entire album is based off the book.
That's cool. I thought you were going to talk about Rick Rubin, because he's got a book out, The Creative Way. And that's another great one. He's like a really famous hip hop producer.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely will check out Russ.
Yeah, it's an amazing album. It's a journey. It's based off the book if you love it. So yeah, I know it was those are great recommendations. We haven't had them yet. So that's the best part about it is like sometimes you get these little sleeper hits, and they're the big difference for a lot of people. So I appreciate you sharing that.
No problem.
Chris, this has been amazing. As I said, we're going to have you back on, because I feel like we just scratched the surface. Thank you again. As we both said in the introduction, you're someone we looked up to in the industry, and it's kind of like, I'm kind of in shock and awe that we're sitting here getting to talk to you. So thank you for taking the time. And as I said, we'll do this again 100%. If you'll come again, we'd love to have you again, because I feel like you have so much more to share.
Sure. Yeah. Next time we can go deep on actually like the script and the sales script.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me, and keep up all the great work that you guys are doing too.
Thank you, man. And just before you go, for anybody that wants to follow you and find you, obviously we cannot recommend your books enough, but if anybody wants to get in contact with you, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, if you go to theconversioncode.com, that has all my socials, my text message list, my email list. It has the script, the $1 billion sales script from my book. And then Instagram's a great spot too, Chris_SMTH.
Amazing, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.